Yeah, thank you for your responses, everybody, and welcome.
Okay, welcome. Okay, welcome to our presentation. This is quick tips for language teachers. We're going to be highlighting three presentations from the NYS TESOL 2020 conference. We are the Elementary Education Special Interest Group, and we hope that hopefully you didn't attend the sessions that we're going to highlight, and we will be sharing some ideas from the conference. So we'll introduce ourselves now. Mona, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Mona Narcisse, and I am a former ENL teacher / coordinator with the Department of Education of New York City.
Hello, my name is Bridget Pittarelli. I'm an ENL teacher in Binghamton, New York. With Binghamton Schools, I teach grades 1, 2, and 3.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Susan Calix. I'm an ENL teacher in Yonkers Public Schools. Welcome to our webinar.
Good afternoon. My name is Adriana DeScipio. I am an ENL and writing teacher, grade 5, District 15 in Brooklyn. Welcome, Brooklyn, New York.
Good afternoon. My name is Liz Wong. I'm a New York City public school teacher. I've been teaching ENL, but currently teaching 4th grade in Chinatown and Lower Manhattan.
Okay.
Okay, let me go quickly over our agenda. It's going to be very short and sweet. We already, we like to welcome everyone. Also some highlights from New York TESOL 2020 conference. I'm going to go over some of the challenges that our ELs are still facing during remote instruction. Then we'll do Q&A. And we'll go over ideas for future meetings, and we'll go also over New York TESOL resources.
Okay, thank you, Mona. So like we said, we're going to be sharing some highlights from the conference. Myself, Liz, and Adriana presented some teaching tips. So we thought, well, let's go ahead and share these again. So mine is about leveraging EL's multilingualism through guided reading. That was the title. And I'm going to share, I put it in the chat, but I'll reshare the link for a Padlet that I have where as I was researching for the presentation, I was collecting all this information and I said, let me just put it all together and then I can share that as well as the actual slides. So give me a minute to stop sharing and I'm going to put the Padlet link in the chat. Hold on. Okay, sorry. Okay, there's the link to the Padlet, but the presentation itself is okay. So as I said, the title of my quick tip was leveraging multilingualism through guided reading. And I chose guided reading because I'm a big proponent of giving students the opportunity to read things they are able to access. I'm sorry, my internet seems to not want to cooperate. Oh my goodness. Okay, here we go. Okay, so the inspiration behind this is that I really truly believe that educators do not have to be bilingual in order to be advocates and amazing teachers. I happen to speak and use that in the classroom, but there are ways that you can leverage the language of the students without speaking all of the languages. So I start by talking about the why. For me, like I said, it's really important to view the students as assets. What do they bring to the classroom? What do they already know about? When I choose text for my students, I like to think of this image. This comes from an article that's on the Padlet about books being mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. We want our students to see themselves as they read. We want students to see the world beyond, and we want them to be able to experience other people's perspectives. So that's sort of some of the why of incorporating students' background and languages. In the presentation, I went into a little bit of detail about translanguaging, the difference between translanguaging and translating. And this point here is super important for me, helping students make these cross-linguistic connections. My school has a Spanish-English dual language program, and when I'm working with students who are in that program, you want to help them make these connections. What are some of the words? What do we already know that can be used as assets? How can teachers create opportunities for this? Sorry, I'm getting an echo. Are you guys, I hope it's not too echoey.
It's a slight echo, but you're okay.
I'm going to plug in my headphones and see if that helps.
Maybe if everyone can just make sure you're muted,
Yeah,
so
I
that
think
maybe
there
we're
might
getting
be
an
a
echo through
problem,
someone's
sorry.
computer. Thank you.
It's not so strange. Okay, so when you're thinking about multilingualism and creating opportunities, you want to be really strategic about it. What aspects of the languages are shared? What are some of the sounds that are the same? What are cognates that the students might know or might need pointed out for them? So this is sort of the linguistic rationale for creating these cross-linguistic connections. And I chose guided reading because I think it's really important that students are reading, texts that they can access. A lot of times the texts are grade level or above, and it might be way beyond their reading level. So for me, I just really think it's important, back in the day, to put the text in front of them that they can read, or now even virtually to have text that they can access. Oops, sorry. Oh my goodness. So as I said, back in the day, you sat at the kidney table, everybody had their own book. But even in distance learning, if you're teaching remotely, you can have the text on the screen that the students can access. You can share the text so they can reread it. And I just personally think that guided reading is a good way to do this. So how can you help students leverage their multilingualism? In the Padlet, like I said, there's a lot of the research that I did for this topic, and these were some of the suggestions: that you can preview a text in the native language and then read the text in English. And I do that a lot. I have a beginner group that they're all Spanish speakers. And so we'll look at the text first and have a brief discussion in Spanish about what we're going to read, build that background knowledge, but then we read the text in English. The second way you can do it is to read in English and then have the discussion afterwards in another language. You can provide the charts or the graphic organizers or the sentence stems in both languages. So those who feel more comfortable doing it in Spanish, those who feel more comfortable doing it in English, and because everything looks similar, they start to make those connections. And the last one is the one we do at my school, which is to color code the languages. So blue is for English, red is for Spanish, and it helps the children, see those connections. And this was a template that I developed for my school. I'm also, in addition to being an ENL teacher, I work with the dual language program as a mentor teacher some of the time. And last year I did a PD on this topic, and I developed this template to help the teachers see where were those opportunities to leverage multilingualism. Where could we point out cognates, point out vocabulary, help the students start to make those connections by themselves. And so it's a very typical guided reading template: before, during, and after. And it aligns to what I was saying. There's opportunities throughout the lesson to help the students make those connections. This is an example of a chart that I used with my third grade group. These are dual language students. So we were reading about being a good citizen. We read in English, but we had the vocabulary in English and Spanish with the picture to support it, pointing out sounds that are the same, asking them, do you hear anything that sounds the same, with words like respect and respeto, and just helping them to see the connections between the languages. How am I doing on time, ladies? I'm not really good with time. Okay, and these are just some examples of charts that you can use, but cognates, using graphic organizers that look the same in either language helps the students, make those metalinguistic connections. These are examples of sentence stems, again, providing the English and the Spanish so they, they can choose to discuss in either language. The point of the discussion is to think about your comprehension of the text, not necessarily which language you're using. So again, if you, on my Padlet, I have some of the research that Ophelia Garcia did. Maybe some of you heard her speak at the conference, and this is aligned with her theories that it's not about naming English, Spanish, and it's about building comprehension and letting the students use all of their languages. So again, this is sort of a review of how I do it. Sometimes you preview in the native language, let us read in English, discuss in any language, provide the organizers and sentence stems in both languages. When this is distance learning, there's extra considerations. If you are providing asynchronous instruction, you might do a book introduction in Spanish for the book that's going to be read in English, or you might allow the students to respond in either language. So those are some ideas for distance learning. And like I said, a lot of the research is on my Padlet. There's some videos, the template. So thank you very much. That was my presentation. So I'm going to go back to our main presentation and introduce Liz. Guess I'm having all these technical problems now. Okay. Okay. Okay, Liz, go ahead.
Thanks so much, Susan. So the quick tip that I have to share with everybody today is writing and speaking with language complexity. And my PowerPoint is linked to that title there. Susan, are you going to go to that next slide also for me with the quote?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so I chose this quote by Angela Carter. It says, "Language is power, life and the instrument of culture, the instrument of domination and liberation." So it can be pretty important how we convey our messages. And in my presentation, I hope that will become clear to you. So now I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and can everybody see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So this was a quick tip that I had shared with Susan back in November for the 2020 50th anniversary NYS TESOL conference. So you might wonder why language complexity. This is actually one of the 5 dimensions on the NYSESLAT speaking and writing rubric. And in my school, we noticed that this was the dimension that our Ls had the most trouble with, that they did well in the other 4 dimensions, but when it came to language complexity and using a variety of sentence types, they really struggled. So there are 3 points that I just want to make about why language complexity is important. First, efficiency is very important. Using fewer words to express multiple ideas becomes very important as the students move up in the grades. The second point is that when we use complex sentences in our speaking or our writing, it demonstrates sophistication and a command of the English language. And finally, having a variety of sentence types, such as simple, expanded, compound, and complex, just makes language interesting to read and listen to. On my next slide, I have here the sentence types as defined by the NYSESLAT. So I've taken the first 2 columns from the NYSESLAT. The NYSESLAT identifies 4 sentence types: simple, expanded, compound, and complex. And they've also given educators the definitions. So, these are names and definitions that I will share with my students. But in addition to that, I also give them an example so that it really drives the point home. And what I try to do for each sentence type is give 3 different examples from 3 different grades. So the first example is from kindergarten, and that example for the simple sentence is, "The butterfly is pretty," right? Because kindergartners study the butterfly unit in my school. The second sentence I have here is from our 3rd grade unit on Kenya. They study countries around the world in 3rd grade in my school. So the simple sentence there is, "Kenya is a country." And the third example is from the 5th grade unit on the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the Incas. And that sentence example is the Mayans ate avocados. And you'll see that in blue, the next sentence type is the expanded sentence. So in addition to giving them the definition, we'll go over the examples. So using those same examples as the simple sentence, but expanding it, adding prepositional phrases or compound subject or predicate, or adding adjective or adverb phrases, which are typical in expanded sentences. The examples read, the butterfly flies in the sky. And I've bolded there the part that makes this an expanded sentence, in the sky, which is the prepositional phrase. Another example of the expanded sentence is the butterfly grows very quickly. Again, very quickly is bolded because that is the adverb phrase. The other examples in this section are Kenya is a country in Africa. Kenya and Tanzania are countries. So Kenya and Tanzania are, make up a compound subject, which is why it's a expanded sentence. And the fifth grade example is the compound predicate. The Mayans grew and ate avocados. Okay, so the third sentence type is the compound sentence, and the examples are the butterfly is pretty and it is colorful. Okay, so the and is the coordinating conjunction that makes this a compound sentence, connecting two independent clauses. The butterfly is pretty and it is colorful. The next example is Kenya is a country, but Africa is a continent. So but is the coordinating conjunction, again, connecting two independent clauses. Kenya is a country and Africa is a continent. And the third example from fifth grade is the Mayans ate avocados, so they grew them as crops. Okay, so is that coordinating conjunction connecting the two independent clauses. And the fourth and probably the most sophisticated sentence type is the complex sentence. This is the one that students, maybe struggle to understand when they're reading and have an even harder time writing. So the kindergarten example uses the subordinating conjunction because. And you'll see that in the definition column, I've identified some subordinating conjunctions. Again, that comes from the NYS TESOL. So if they use because, since, after, although, and when, that will make their sentence a complex sentence. Or if they use a relative pronoun, such as that, who, or which, that will make their sentence a complex sentence. So the examples are, the butterfly is pretty because it is colorful. When the sun is out, the butterfly flies everywhere. So again, I've bolded those words because and when, because they're subordinating conjunctions and relative pronouns that make these sentences complex. The next third grade example is Kenya is a country, which is located in Africa. And for fifth grade, since avocados grow in the region, the Mayans ate them. So now that we've gone over those sentence types, the definitions, and the examples, I added a fourth column for students to write their own examples for each sentence type. Okay, so they'll have some time to do that, and the teacher may have to assist. And what I've given you in the next slide are some examples that you can expect from a fourth grader. So some simple sentences that a fourth grader might write include, my dog is friendly. I have a sister. Summer's my favorite season. The expanded sentence examples may include, I like to run in the 4 seasons. My dog grows very quickly. I will go on vacation in the summer. Oftentimes with the expanded sentences, the expanded part answers the how or the when or, the why. So for example, when do you run? I like to run in the 4 seasons. How is your dog doing? My dog grows very quickly. When will you go on vacation? I will go on vacation in the summer. Okay, and going on to the compound sentences, some examples include, I went to the Museum of Natural History and I went to the Hall of Science. Just gonna move that over so you can, maybe I'll make this a little smaller so you can see the right margin of that fourth column. Okay, so another compound sentence example is, I like basketball, but she likes basketball, but she doesn't like baseball. I am so tired, so I take a nap. And finally, for your complex sentences, I am tired because I went to sleep late last night. When it is 2:30, I go home. I like my notebook, which is black and white, so adding additional information. And if you're talking about people, use who. So I have a sister who is friendly and nice. And finally, since it is getting cold, I will wear a sweater. Okay, so for the expanded sentences, my colleague Beatrice Martinez and I at my school, we created this table of expanded sentences because we realized there's so many different types. So there are prepositional phrases, right? There are compound subject or predicates that make a sentence expanded. And again, we have given definitions and sample sentences. It's actually two-sided. So on the back, adjective phrases, adverb phrases, participial phrases, and infinitive phrases also make expanded sentences. So we just thought this was a nice reference for teachers because teachers might not know what adverb phrases are, participial phrases. And then again, that third column with the examples can be very powerful for students. When they have examples, they can better understand and come up with their own sentence types. Okay, and then the next graphic organizer I've created is called Noticing and Collecting Different Sentence Types. Now that students are familiar with the different sentence types, I'd like them to jot down these different sentence types from their reading. It could be any reading that you do with them. So it could be something in guided reading like Susan was presenting to us, or it could be a shared reading or a read aloud. It's just to get students to notice and be aware of the sentence types used in their reading. And now that they've noticed sentence types in their reading, they can hopefully use different sentences in their writing. So after they've written, let's say, a first draft, they're going to use this graphic organizer called Using Different Sentence Types to revise my writing. So they'll jot down the simple sentences that they have in their writing, the expanded sentences that they have, the compound and the complex sentences that they have. And if you look carefully at the expanded sentence, the student here actually made a mistake and he jotted down his sentence, "The boy wanted a cat because it's cute." That is actually not an expanded sentence. He used because, which is a complex sentence. So that is to be expected. It's part of the learning process. And this is a great opportunity for you to discuss with the student why this is not expanded and why it's complex. Again, it's because of that subordinating conjunction because, and then helping the student correct the sentence. So this is just to make sure that they are writing with a variety of sentence types. And finally, I've taken 3 student samples and they're separated by the dotted lines so that we can revise student writing to make their language more complex. So I've coded the different sentence types. SS stands for simple sentence, ES for expanded sentence, CD for compound sentence, and CX for complex. I know it's hard to read, so what I did was I took that first student writing and I typed it out for us, and this is what it looks like. So we've identified the sentences that the student used. So the first 2 sentences, for example, are expanded. I went to China 8 months ago, right? Because it answers the question when. When did you go to China? I went to China 8 months ago. That's an expanded sentence. The second one is also expanded. I played at the water parks. At the water parks tells us where. It's a prepositional phrase, so it's another expanded sentence. And you'll see that there aren't very many complex sentences. So I see 4 expanded sentences, 1 simple sentence, and towards the end, we help this student revise to include the relative pronoun which, right? I also ate barbecue, which included my favorite foods of fish ball and tofu. So helping the student include a complex sentence in their writing. Okay, and that's the end of my presentation. I hope I, did that in 10 minutes for Adriana.
You were perfect, Liz. You have 3 seconds left.
Okay, great. And thank you, Susan, for sharing that main PowerPoint again. So our third tip is explicit teaching of register and elementary grades, formal and informal language. And our presenter is Adriana DiScipio.
Thank you so much, Liz, and thank you, everybody. I think I'm going to share my screen now, so please just give me a second.
We will have some time for questions at the end, so feel free, if something comes up, you can put them in the chat. The presentation, so mine is on the Padlet link, and I believe Liz put her link as well into the chat.
Okay, how am I doing? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so welcome everybody. Let me set my timer because I've been told I'm time challenged. All right, here we go. Okay, so I'm Adriana DiScipio from District 15, Brooklyn. I teach writing and I'm an ESL teacher also. in 5th grade classroom. And my topic is explicit teaching of register in elementary grades, formal and informal language. So in this 10-minute quick tip, I'm going to remind us what is register and why it's important to introduce language register to ELs in writing especially, and how this connects to the teaching of formal and informal language. Then I'll give a grade 5 demonstration of how I conducted this in my classroom. I'll share some resources, and we'll have time for questions and answers for all 3 presentations. So language register, quick review for those who know and for those who don't, it's really important. It's how we change our language in context. Well, why teach it to elementary students? So the rationale for this really started with when I was looking at my students' writing, and I noticed that they were, especially because we were remote, they were very confused about what is appropriate, what should go in a document, in an essay, or in a Google stream, for example. So quick review, register the words and style and grammar used by speakers and writers in a particular situation. I tell my students that I use, kid-friendly words, but in linguistics, in the field of linguistics, register is defined as tenor, field, and mode. For my students, I tell them it is audience, who are you communicating with? It's topic, what are you talking about? Or what's the content area? And it's context, where and how are you communicating? So I introduced that concept. And then another rationale for this is equity, believe it or not. One of the things I noticed was that a lot of my English language learners were no longer having access to models of academic English during COVID-19. They were isolated. They had trouble logging on. So, they had spotty Wi-Fi, they had inferior devices. And so their primary means of socialization was gaming or texting or social media or chats. And this was the language they were bringing to the classroom. So I decided, I can't control their access to online, their access to online instruction, their spotty Wi-Fi. I can't control if they're gaming or on chats, but I can control what they do with me. So with all that information, I set out to do something about this, okay? Here are some examples of the writing that I was seeing. I have highlighted my 3 favorite. At the end of every essay, thanks for reading, bye, and then a million exclamation points. I've started seeing emojis and comments like this one. According to Hail the Aztecs by Jen Green, she said, a priest, blah, 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 blah. And then the student writes, ew, gross, and puts emojis in an essay. And then my favorite one, I think that Cortez was bad because he killed a lot of indigenous people. And for some reason, hold on one second. Oh, there we go. And a lot of them lost their land, and that really sucks. Believe it or not, I was seeing the word sucks everywhere, especially with my English language learners. They see this word, they see it in social media, they see it, they hear it in the street, they hear it with peers, and it made it to our writing, and it was pretty rampant. So I set out to do something about this. Oops, there we go. And this was my progression. Number 1, how to teach register explicitly. Number 1, first draw on what they already know, their background knowledge. Second, introduce the concept of register or language for different purposes. Thirdly, explicitly teach the linguistic features of academic language and informal language too. And fourth, give them a time to play with language, kind of like what Liz was doing, noticing language, because language is ultimately a communicative act. Give them a time to play in a controlled setting. And then finally hold them accountable for it in their writing also, okay? So step 1, how did I draw on their background knowledge? Well, I just brought up examples of our Google Classroom stream, which was full of inappropriate things, comments, the language that was on the stream, the language we use in the chat in Google Meets. I asked them to share examples of texting. I shared some from my phone and social media and email. And we looked at these examples and we talked about the way people talk in this context. They had a lot to say. Secondly, I love cartoons to generate discussions. So I tried to find some that are appropriate for elementary grades. This one was very interesting. So if you can see it here, it's a work context. And so they know this right away. They see that these people are in an office. And I ask about the shirt that he's wearing. And believe it or not, half the class says, "What's wrong with that?" And the other half says, "No, no, no, there's something wrong with that. You know, you can't wear that to work." Once I do that, I introduce, I get them talking about it. I introduce the concept of register, right? I talk about formal versus informal language because I'm working with 10-year-olds, so I have to really, make this as clear as possible. And a really, really important point I want to make is that I make a point to validate the usage of both. I don't want them to think that formal language is bad, that informal language is bad and formal is good. I want them to understand that we change the way we speak depending on the register. And I try to teach them that word. That you change the way you talk depending on your audience and your purpose. And we talk about what language belongs in the classroom in our essays and what belongs on our cell phones when we're texting. This is probably the most successful activity I do. I compose an email to my assistant principal in front of them. And I use the most informal language possible. I use emojis, I abuse of punctuation marks. And once again, most of the class says, "No, no, no, don't send it. You're going to get fired." But the other half say, "It's cute. It's great. I love it. She's going to be so happy." So that's when I realize I've got my work cut out for me. Then what I do is I like to show them examples and non-examples. So I'll construct another email side by side, and we'll talk about the difference. How did this email change? Which one is going to get me what I want? And which one is going to get me in trouble? And there's a very lively discussion that ensues from this. So now I feel like they're ready and I can explicitly teach them what is formal language, what is informal language. So this takes a little bit longer. I give them some background on etymology. There's a great brain pop video, for those of you who are familiar with it, on where English comes from, the Anglo-Saxon roots of English, and it's child-friendly. I show them videos on the Greek and Latin roots of the English language. And then based on these two important concepts, I choose explicit features to teach. I cannot introduce all of them to 10-year-olds, so I have to be very selective. And this is what I do. I tell them that formal language, so this is a chart that we build in the classroom over time. I just want to be clear. It's not something I just hand them. We talk about it based on the research we've done as a class. That formal language consists of longer words of Greek and Latin origin, for example, surrender and collapse, versus Anglo-Saxon words, which are mostly two-word phrasal verbs like give up and fall down. And my students know that what surrender means. And when I ask them what's the difference between surrender and give up, it's interesting the conversation that comes out of that. But intuitively, they know one sounds smarter, they say, one sounds better, right? Kind of like what Liz was talking about, I tell them that complex sentences are more formal in writing, and that informal language consists of shorter, simple sentences, that formal language uses correct punctuation, and that informal uses no punctuation or kind of overuses punctuation, like the email I shared with them, that there's less emotion in formal, but there could be a strong tone in informal language. We avoid abbreviations for the most part, informal, but it's okay to use them in informal, even emoticons, et cetera, et cetera. I talk about point of view. And finally, slang, and then transition words, that there's some that sound very academic and there's some that we use in speech that are informal. So after I do that, we collect examples. So we notice language from around the building, and here are some examples that we've collected from around our school. So you will not have recess today versus you won't have recess today. So we understand that contractions are informal. I inflated my balloon versus I blew up my balloon, of course, referring to that chart that I showed before. Since my students love Fortnite and they're gamers, this is from an article on Fortnite, and this is the text that someone said. I had no idea what JSYK meant. I learned that myself, just so you know. I heard you can play crossplay on Fortnite on PS5 and Xbox, smiley face. And we talk about, these two forms of communicating juxtaposed. And finally, this was from a flyer after our talent show at PS 230. This was a student comment. The student used slang, simple sentences, informal connecting words, and excessive punctuation, all the things we talked about on our chart. And once again, I validate that this is one way of communicating and formal is another, and they're both okay, but you have to know when to use them. And finally, I give them time to play opportunity. So my favorite way is to transpose song lyrics. The one I've had the most success with is, of course, BTS. We did the song Dynamite, and I challenged them to look at this informal stanza. We do one at a time, and using what they learned, linguistic features of formal language, can they change this informal stanza to lyrics to formal language? And here are some examples of the work that they did. My favorite one is, you can see right here that they're understanding the concepts. It's not perfect, but they're starting to understand. So where it says, "cause I'm in the stars tonight," the student knew, oh, that's a contraction, I'm going to split it. Okay, and they're using words like observe instead of watch. And I will share this presentation because I know I don't have a lot of time left. So you can look at the examples that fifth graders did with this song. Here's another one. King Kong kicked the drum, rolling on like a rolling stone. And the student wrote, "I am so energetic that I am thinking while walking home." So they're starting to understand this concept, and that was my goal, okay? So some quick tips before I go. Do not expect perfection. In my world, as in yours, I'm sure, I have students of all levels and all ranges, and they're gonna get what they get. So my more advanced students will really understand this much more deeply. My newcomers they notice there's a difference. And so if they do that, then I feel successful and they're learning something. And they're learning an important skill. Secondly, hold them accountable in checklists and rubrics. You might have to go back and revisit this concept again. So I teach it several times. I remind them throughout the year, formal and informal, formal and informal. And then also the vocabulary of the features. I use that vocabulary from that chart I shared earlier. I use complex sentence. I use words like that. And that's my presentation. I'm sorry if I went over. I will stop sharing. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Adriana. Okay, so that was our third tip. Okay, Mona.
Okay, Susan, can you bring my slide, please? All right.
Yes, you see?
Hi, everyone again. I only have one slide that I will share. The ladies before me did an excellent job. Adriana spoke a little bit about the challenges our ELs are still facing, and I will continue to elaborate on challenges. Not that I want to be the bearer of bad news, I'm just bringing a state of awareness. Because although I no longer work with the New York City children in the public schools, but I continue to work privately with students. And I stay in touch with my old parents, teachers, with my students. My concern is the students who are fully remote, and I will talk about that later on. I know teachers are doing their best to support learning and learning recovery. However, we have to be aware that some of our students continue to face challenges and some of our kids stop learning altogether. Yes, the lessons are beautiful. You spend hours planning and you can't find these children. I want you to be aware that our L population tends to be transient, and with the pandemic, it has gotten worse. If you can't find them, you simply can't teach them. I spoke to many parents and I found out that some of our families became financially unstable and they are displaced. I have one parent, for instance, who still register her kids in Brentwood. However, she lives in Brooklyn and she doesn't want the school district to know. And it's hard to have her children to show up for meetings all the time. They move to different boroughs. They even moved to different countries. Outside of the United States, I got calls the other day. For instance, a student is trying to reach me. And when I say, can I call you back? She texted, she says, I'm in the Dominican Republic. When I spoke to the teacher said, yes, she shows once in a while, she's not there. Time zone is of the essence. Yes, Dominican Republic, Haiti, same time zone. However, getting Wi-Fi in those countries can be challenging. Yemen, we have students, I'm speaking from experience, we have students who went back to Yemen. Look at the time difference between Yemen and the United States. These children are still in your register. 6 hours different, it's nighttime here when it's daytime in Yemen and vice versa. These kids are not showing up. However, the older children know how to get around the system. They know how to submit their work for attendance. So they continue to be present. However, the work is not being done. We talk about technology. Another problem that we have with the technology, sharing devices. Even if they're here in Yemen or in the Dominican Republic, you have 3 siblings sharing one device. And I have one teacher who called me to find out what's going on with so-and-so, for instance. When I spoke to the mom, 3 kids are sharing the same device. So there is not enough time for them to be with their schedule to be on the computer at the same time. My point to you, my advice to you, if you can find another way to send the work to them. For instance, last year I worked with a teacher where we design lessons, we send Google documents, we send them links for Read Aloud, ReadWorks, we use Khan Academy if you can find an alternative, because they can't be there. So one child in the household is older. What is she gonna do? She's gonna do the work, and then the younger kids are suffering. Meanwhile, the parents can't help, and it's really overwhelming. I just want you to be aware of what's going on with those kids, because right now, even if we say, okay, the districts are given devices, you and I know that right now focus with resources is to reopen schools safely. Money is being reallocated for things like PPE, proper ventilation, vaccines. These kids are not getting devices. So whatever we can do to reach them, by all means, please try your best. And the last thing I want to talk about, and it's communication. A parent called me because she didn't know what to do. She has a 5th grader who's going to 6th grade. She's asking me about proper school for the kid. And I'm saying, okay, did they send you anything? She says, yes, but I don't understand what's going on. Please be aware, translation and interpretation. And as ENL teachers, we always advocate for our kids. Sometimes things will just go home without translations, and the parents will contact the person they feel the most comfortable with for clarification or for translation. So please be aware that they trust the ENL teacher more than anybody else, and they will come to you for advice, for everything. Another thing that I'm saying, privacy when it comes to communication. Our parents are misplaced. A lot of them are new immigrants, and they are sharing homes, apartments. And I know in some districts, they make it's mandatory for the kid to be on video, on camera. And a lot of the parents continue to be uncomfortable with it. If I live in a room and I'm sharing with many people, I really don't want my private business to be out, and they really don't feel comfortable. And the reason why that came to me, the parent told me, oh, Miss So-and-so was very hard on me because I don't want my child on camera. And she's told me the reason why she doesn't want the child on camera. Those are the things we should be aware of. And during, I know most teachers now have office hours, or make a phone call and find out why that child cannot be on camera and find other alternatives to work with the child. I know we cannot solve every problem. A lot of them are beyond your control, but please try to do your best to work with those parents, because you are the only lifeline when it comes to their children. Again, I'm going to reiterate that we should offer other alternatives such as links like Storyline Online, ReadWorks, send them work on Google Docs where the child can just type and return it to you. And also be aware, if Johnny is not in your class and just click submit, Johnny might not be in the country. Okay, so with this said and done, this is all that I had to share with you today. Now, our presenters will be more than happy to answer your questions.
Okay, thank you, Mona. So we're at the Q&A. Is there anything in the chat? I'm not looking at the chat, so I don't know.
I don't see any questions on the chat.
Okay, we'll give a few minutes if somebody wants to ask a question to Mona, Adriana, Liz, myself. Please feel free.
There's a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Somebody wants you to share the presentation.
Yes, we shared all of them. Adriana, did you yours is linked, or?
I can put mine in the chat.
Okay, we'll put it in the chat for everyone.
Yep. Give me 1 sec.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we're gonna, if something comes up, we'll come back to it. So we're trying to finish on time here. We wanted to know if people were interested, or what people were interested in for future meetings. So Adriana, Bridget, and Mona and I are the co-chairs of the elementary special interest group, and we want to plan things that people are excited about and interested in doing. So one idea we had was to perhaps start a little book club where people would buy the book, and it would be a very informal we'd make some groups, discuss some of the chapters of the book. So we wanted to kind of gauge interest in that, and Adriana made a little survey. Can you put that in the chat as well, Adriana? So if you're interested, we would love if you would fill out the survey, and we'll come up with a plan for the book club or any other ideas, because one of the challenges of a group like this is that it's hard for us to know, like we're all in different locations. So any ideas that people have, we would love to discuss and see if we can plan some things. Did anyone else want to say anything about?
And a book club would be, of course, more than one session.
Yes,
right?
yeah, it would be in the spring because it's already February. So we were looking at in the spring, and this was the book that I had heard about and I bought, and I think it would be very applicable for all elementary teachers beyond ESL teachers. Hopefully we could invite in some non-ESL teachers. So go ahead.
Has anyone read this book? I'm just curious.
I've started. And I'm working on inviting one of the ENL teachers on the West Coast, Dr. Katie Topple, who's held a book club discussion on this book, and her and Valentina Gonzalez, who has actually co-authored the book with the other person, I can't even read it, Melinda Miller. She's working alongside Valentina Gonzalez, and they are hosting a book club on this. So I am reaching out to her to try to get her to join us for a book club for one of the sessions. So that's in the works as well.
Okay.
All right, I guess it's my turn. So New York State TESOL resources. There's a lot on our website, and ladies, I don't know if you're going to share this our Google Slides presentation, but everything is hyperlinked. So if you want to click, one of the resources is our webinar events. Everybody knows where to go to that. So I like hyperlinks that. That'll take you right to the website. The advocacy, who's controlling? I don't know who's controlling the slide here.
I am.
Okay, so if you click on the advocacy, it's hyperlinked. It'll take you to our site, and there's our position papers that you can read that New York State TESOL advocacy, the advocacy leadership team has worked on. If you go back, I've cited some advocacy right now current alerts that just came across on my email. TESOL International has an advocacy alert for, you can click on that, Adriana, that you could share. You can like complete the survey or the advocacy alert, the letter, and it's for, right now, the advocacy alert is for supporting adult education funding, and it's for adult English learners. So you can do that. There's another one for the New York State Every Student Succeed Act for the tests. So there, I think the deadline was February 5th. You can go in and you can email the SIG comments at newyorkstateed.gov. You can't do the survey. That is where they discuss like state tests and the nicest slot. So I would go and definitely email people about that. The teaching resource Padlet, if you click that hyperlink, that takes you to a collection. Oops, did I not hyperlink that correctly? I can go back and fix it. It takes you to a hyperlink. I don't know, go back to the presentation. I don't know. Is it down below? Maybe you went up above.
I clicked on this teaching resource Padlet.
Oh, okay. The online resources that New York State TESOL has, I'll go fix it. This was collected at the beginning of COVID in March. Everybody put their things, but the Padlet has all the resources that have been collected that Dr. Becker has put together. The YouTube channel, you can use that to, you know, say you have a little PD in your school. There's tons of great resources there of presentations that have been presented, past events. Please use them, they're there. Publications, if you go there, you know, New York State TESOL is always looking for people to write for the journal and the Mosaic. Also the blog, I hyperlink that. If get your hands, jump in and write a blog. We're always looking for people to write to, you know, be part of the blog and, you know, email and then the events calendar is added to the website. That's like a quick link for you to like go and look, a quick glance. You can see all the events that are happening. Even events outside of NYS TESOL that have to go with our, you know, TESOL community. Like there's one coming up that's part of the ALWC conference is coming up in March. So if you go to the calendar, I don't know if it goes to March, but I've put that on the slideshow.
Have to go to the.
Yeah, go to the, yeah, is ALWC, the linguistics applied
Yes,
winter.
here, Saturday.
So you participate in that. That's an you know, an event that's free to members of New York State TESOL. There's the New Jersey TESOL conference coming up, the TESOL International Virtual Summit. So there's all these good options for us to, you know, develop our toolkit and to learn from people in our field. And one of the things that I'm going to say is join now for those people that are in your schools that are not even ENL teachers. Like my big thing is trying to get teachers who have our Ls involved because we all know this stuff. We teach this. We've had experience with this. We are trying to like get your co-teachers, get your teachers who have Ls sitting in the science class. And, you know, they're the ones that have to learn from us. So have them join. It's $15 and then they can, you know, access all these resources, join our webinars, even, you know, remind them our webinars are free even for non-members. And of course, the save the date for our conference. So my big thing is, you know, we ENL teachers, already are part of this organization, are part of a network. It's getting other people interested in this, you know? So that's my little say. Thank you.
Okay.
We had a question about CTLE credits.
So CTLE credit, the CTLE credits, there's a link that should have been with your registration, right? Isn't there an email? There's an email that you get, or you go to the website, and if you go to the website, click on that slide I had.
Oh, I'm
If you
sorry.
go to the webinar events,
Events?
go to the first bullet, webinar events. Right there. And you scroll down, and right up above, nope, these are all the events, go
Oh,
up.
it's right here. Follow
Follow
this
link.
link.
Yeah.
It's right on the website.
So just make sure you do that. And then, you know, whoever's in charge of that, I can't remember which leadership person.
Please fill out the survey if you would like to do the book club. I think it would be a good chance to have a lot of voices heard, and hopefully, like Bridget said, bring in some non-ESL teachers to join us. That would be a wonderful way to spread the information.
I've linked the link to this webinar presentation in the chat. So all the hyperlinks are in there and you guys can access it.
Christine, you had a question?
Hi, yeah, thank you. And I'm so glad I was able to do that. I just saw this on the TESOL Facebook feed yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, this is great. Even though it was like a crazy long day teaching online. We have a faculty conference at 2:30 every Tuesday, and
Fun.
department grade level K-2 meetings on Tuesdays. But this is nice just with other teachers. Has anybody heard anything about what might be happening with the NYS flat? Or if there's a mini modification?
I've heard, so that's why go to that link for the advocacy. I heard there's a buzz coming up, grumblings through my district, that there was a waiver that they students who were remote at home didn't have to take it. That was the waiver. And then the kids who were in school had to take it. So now this is where we come in and advocate. That is not fair and equitable, not even for those kids in school, because their learning has been disjointed in my school. We go hybrid 1 week, remote the next, it's back and forth, back and forth. So this is where we have to advocate as educators of ELS. And that's why email the state. The survey has been like shut down. I went in today to try to see. So this is where we have to do we have to put the footprints in. We have to do our work, and we have to fight for these kids, because it's not only the state test like the ELA and the the Regents test, it's the nicest lot that they have to think about. And so when we saw that the bilingual department was putting a waiver out there, I was like, that is ridiculous. So go in and email.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I work at a bilingual French charter school in Harlem, in Manhattan. And so like a lot of stuff, what's it called? You were showing, I would like the Spanish and the French and the English, I would have to get from the French teachers to have a chart. But most of my students, I say, oh, how do you say that in French? I'm like, okay. But I mean, we have a situation where all the children, they filled out the NYS TESOL waiver, the parents filled out the new kids, but I thought, we kept thinking we'd reopen, but I'm not sure if we're going to reopen now, because we see the public schools closing and opening. Like my son goes to a public school, they're closed now this whole week now, and they won't be open until after the winter break. And it's crazy. But I wonder, the kids that were new this year, and they should have taken the NYS TESOL, I wonder if they're gonna, if we could give them a NYS TESOL next September, if we reopen in next September, because to have an official baseline for them,
Yes. So Christine, you're saying that new students came in, should have been given a NYS TESOL based on the interview, but were not given because they're remote?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
that's hard. I mean,
now-
there's a limited amount of time that they were supposed to do it.
Right.
in, so I don't really have an answer to that
Yeah, so
question.
yeah, so it's really tricky. So
Yeah.
we've actually stayed fully remote. I know the state said you can't give the NYS TESOL for remote, and I totally understand that.
Right.
My wonder, and I'm wondering, like, they probably would have been considered eligible for NYS slat if we reopened. But now we're thinking it's likely we might not reopen until September.
Yeah, it's
And
very
at that point,
complicated.
it's
very
so
complicated.
complicated.
I mean, I have a lot of students who if they took the NYS slat would probably exit.
I have some
So
too.
it's like you want to be fair and you want, but at the same time, you know, if the kids for 2 years don't take it, then nobody moves. Everybody is still, you know, in the
Right,
level that
stuck.
they were. So there's no easy answers. And I heard, you know, similar things to what Bridget said. So we don't have any answers for that. Sorry.
Yeah, I know,
but
I understand. It's
what's
like we're
what's in
all
our-
wondering.
you know, and I think I put in the chat, you know, we can only do what's in our locus of control, and that's, you know, unfortunately, you know,
Right.
that's about all we can
That's
do.
true.
But
Yeah.
this is
Thank
how
you
I
for
look
coming. I
at it.
remember you, Christine. I remember you from another event.
Yeah, in the summer.
Yes,
in
yes,
August.
yes.
Yes. Yeah,
Did
this is a
anyone
great
else
group.
have a comment or a question? Or 501 here, but feel free to unmute yourselves.
And remember, if you can't make our webinar events, they're always recorded and put into the YouTube channel. So there's, you know, the Nicest Lot YouTube channel. Check it out. There's tons of webinars there. Good ones.
Thank you,
And
Joy.
ones that can fit, you know, like your, you know, everybody has PLCs. Make it a E&L PLC day, and, you know, pick a webinar that, you know, your team, you know, is interested in, you know, learning. There's great stuff. I just, like, it breaks my heart that it's like all this stuff and no one's using it. So I always like to, you know, put it out there. Thank you for taking the time today to come too. I know we're all exhausted being on Zoom.
Yes.
Great, thank you, everybody.
This
Thank
is
you,
nice.
everyone.
Thank
Fill out
you.
the
Thank
survey.
you.
Maybe we'll
Like
have our book club.
What Adriana?
I'll put it in the chat one more time.
Thank
real
you,
quick.
Adriana.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, where's
It-
it?
Because it's exactly what the kids are doing. The chat comments they put on the Google Classroom, right?
So true, yeah.
Now the little ones have figured it out too.
Yep.
Somebody's
It's funny when I'm like, oh my goodness, they even figured out how to change their name. See, they get more tech savvy as you go.
With images, emojis, even
I
videos
know.
they're putting in the stream, and I can't, I mean, I had a student who filmed herself in her pajamas and posted it on the stream.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, see, I'm so glad I don't teach the older ones. That's
I want to
funny.
say quickly, thank you guys so much. It was so nice, like seeing you face to face. I know, Susan, I think some of you I've maybe met in person before, but I know we've emailed a bunch. This was awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Cheryl.
you.
Kayla, thanks for being
Bye.
here. Bye, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right, take care,
Bye,
everybody.
guys. I'm gonna go.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Christine. Bye.
Thank you.
Elementary SIG. I'll keep you guys posted on Dr. Katie Topple. I hope we can like coordinate
Please,
something.
yes,
Yes, she's amazing. So, and thank you, ladies. Your presentations were amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bridget.
Bridget, thanks for helping.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay,
I
bye,
will see you.
everybody.
Nice meeting you, Liz. It's nice
Nice
to look at
meeting you.
your face. Christine, nice
Thank
seeing your
you,
face. I
Liz.
recognize you all the time.
Bye.
Thank
I'm
you,
back.
Mona,
Thank you.
Mike, I didn't forget about you. I'm still buying your book and you're still coming on as a guest.
Guess what? It's translated in Spanish. I'm
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
Thank
Is?
you. Thank
Oh,
you.
What
and
book? You
I'm
wrote a
like,
book?
yeah. So I
Yes.
told I mentioned you to my students. So we're like slow moving here. So it'll probably
Thank
be March
you.
by the time I reach out to you.
Thank
But
you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. All
Bye,
right. Thank
ladies.
you. Bye,
Okay,
ladies.
good job, ladies.
Bye.
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 Thanks, Susan. Thanks
Oh, no
for including
problem.
me in this.
No problem. We'll talk to you. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Okay, take care. This is here. Okay.